Chapter 7. Third Declension Nouns. Chapter 7 covers the following: third declension, that is, consonant stem nouns, patterns in the formation of the nominative singular of third declension, and the agreement between third declension nouns and first-second declension adjectives. At the end of the lesson, we'll review the vocabulary which you should memorize in this chapter. There is only one important rule to remember here. The genitive singular ending in third declension is is. We've already encountered first and second declension nouns. Now we'll address the third. A fair question to ask, and one which some of you may be asking, is why is there a third declension at all? Third declension is Latin's catch-all category for nouns. Into it have been put all nouns whose bases end with consonants, any consonant. That makes third declension very different from first and second declension. First declension, as you'll remember, is dominated by A-stem nouns like femina and cura. Second declension is dominated by O or U-stem nouns like amicus or oculus. Those vowels give those declensions a certain consistency. But the same is not true of third declension, where one form, the nominative singular, is affected by the fact that its ending s runs into the wide variety of consonants found at the ends of the bases of third declension nouns, and the collision of those consonants causes irregular forms to appear in the nominative singular. That's the bad news. The good news is that only one case and number is affected by this, the nominative singular. All the other case endings begin with vowels, and consonants running into vowels does not create the same kind of problem that consonants running into consonants does. Thus, after the nominative singular, third declension forms are regular and predictable. And here they are. Let's recite them together. We'll leave both the nominative and vocative singulars off in our recitation because the nominative is irregular and the vocative is always the same as the nominative. So starting with the genitive, let's pronounce these endings. Is, e, em, e, and then in the plural, ace, ibis, ace, ibis. Stop this presentation for a second and recite these endings until you can say them quickly and correctly, and do them backwards at least once. Now let's look at how these endings work when they're attached to a third declension noun base. And remember that only third declension nouns can take these endings. Up until now, we haven't learned any third declension nouns, so we'll have to get one from our new vocabulary. The example we'll use here is civitas, civitatis, feminine, meaning state. Here it is, fully declined. Let's say it together. Civitas, civitatis, civitati, civitatem, civitate. We'll leave the vocative off. Civitates, civitatum, civitatibus, civitates, civitatibus. While third declension looks very different in form from first and second, its translation is the same. Civitas, the state as subject, civitatis, of the state, civitati, to or for the state, which is as much as I am willing to do for the state right now. I think you get it, at least I hope so. Let's move on. Those are the endings used for masculine and feminine gender, but third declension includes all three genders, unlike first declension in which most of the nouns are feminine, or second declension in which most of the nouns are masculine or neuter. Also, unlike first and second declension, all three genders in third declension decline in a similar fashion. Only neuter has a slight variation. Here are the neuter third declension endings. Notice the only difference between these and their masculine and feminine counterparts is in the nominative, accusative, and vocative cases. Let's look at the plural first. In place of the es found in the nominative and accusative plural of the masculine and feminine, there is an a. In the singular, the neuter nominative and accusative utilize no ending at all. That was an Indo-European trait inherited by Latin. But that does not mean the raw base simply sits there, because many of the bases in their raw form were considered unpronounceable by the Romans. These lonely bases often change form. Let's look at an example of that. The neuter third declension word tempus declines as follows: tempus, temporis, tempori, tempus, tempore. Vocative tempus. And then in the plural, tempora, temporum, temporibus, tempora, temporibus. Notice that the base tempor, when left alone without an ending, will change it to tempus because of the nature of the way Latin is pronounced. In the end, it's not the endings that are going to cause problems for you in third declension. It's going to be memorizing the gender and the nominative singular form, both unpredictable and often irregular. However, there are some patterns which can help you with memorizing these forms. The patterns I'm going to present on the next few slides are meant only to help you with memorizing. If they don't, feel free to ignore them. Let's start with memorizing gender. The most important pattern that will help you with memorizing the gender of third declension nouns is to remember the rule that abstract nouns are very often feminine in gender. Abstract means that while a noun still represents a thing, that thing does not have tangible substance. You can't touch it. Instead, it denotes a principle or quality, such as goodness, truth, beauty, or certainty. There are 4 patterns of third declension feminine gender abstract nouns worth knowing. The first is a class of noun which ends in its nominative singular tas and its genitive singular tatus. This is comparable to English tea, as in liberty or piety. Here are 2 examples of that type of noun: veritas veritatis, meaning truth, and libertas libertatis, meaning freedom. Notice that the base, which ends tat, when added to the nominative singular third declension ending s, produces tas. The next type of abstract noun which fits this category is very similar. All these nouns end in their nominative singular tus and their genitive singular tutus. For example, virtus virtutus, meaning courage, and senectus senectutus, meaning old age. Here the base, tut, combines with the nominative singular ending s, producing a nominative singular tus. The next pattern is tudo tudinis. Many English words ending in tud, such as attitude, are borrowed from Latin words which have this suffix. Here are 2 examples of that category: altitudo, altitudinis, meaning height, and valetudo, valetudinis, meaning health. Here the base tudin is added to the nominative singular s and suffers considerable contraction down to tudo. The final pattern, and perhaps the most important one, is tio tionis, which gives English its many Latin derivatives ending in shun, such as action. Here are 2 examples of that category: natio nationis, meaning nation, and ratio rationis, meaning reason. Here the base tion, when added to the nominative singular s, produces tio in the nominative singular. All 4 types of abstract noun here are third declension and feminine in gender. But not all noun suffixes in third declension are feminine. Some are masculine. Here are 2 examples. The suffix or, oris, from which we get English words like valor, and Latin produces words like labor, laboris, work, and amor, amoris, meaning love, always generates masculine gender nouns. Note the nominative singular as well. Here the base or and the nominative singular s combine to create a nominative singular or. Another very closely related example is tor, toris, from which we get words like victor. Latin words like actor, actoris, meaning actor, and orator, oratoris, meaning speaker, are invariably masculine in gender. And note that the nominative singular tor operates much like its close kindred or, dropping the s to produce a nominative singular tor. Neuter, unfortunately, offers no such helpful patterns, other than nouns which end in their nominative singular e, al, or ar, such as mare, maris, meaning sea, Animal, animalis, meaning animal, and exemplar, exemplaris, meaning example, tend to be neuter. We'll examine these words more fully in later chapters. Now let's look at some patterns that are useful in helping you memorize irregular third declension nominative singular forms. If a base ends in G or C, when it's combined with the nominative singular ending S, normally the nominative singular ending will appear as X, such as rex regis, meaning king, or lex legis, meaning law, pax pacus, meaning peace, vox vocis, meaning voice, dux ducus, meaning leader, and lux lucus, meaning light. If the base ends in T, NT, or D and runs into the S, most often what will happen is the nominative singular will end in S, sometimes NS, such as virtus, virtutis, meaning courage, civitas, civitatis, meaning state, salus, salutis, meaning health, and laus, laudis, meaning praise. If the base ends in ON or IN and runs into the S, it will contract down all the way to the letter O, such as homo, hominis, meaning human, virgo, virginis, meaning girl, or the name Cicero, Ciceronis, meaning Cicero, the great Roman orator. If the base ends in R, when S is added, the nominative singular will be ER, as in pater, patris, meaning father, mater, matris, meaning mother, and frater, fratris, meaning brother. If the base ends in AR, with S added, it will remain as AR, as in Caesar, Caesaris, meaning Caesar, the Roman general, or exemplar, exemplaris, meaning example. If the base ends OR and is a masculine or feminine noun, with S added, it stays as OR, as in labor, laboris, meaning work, amor, amoris, meaning love, and soror, sororis, meaning sister. If the word is OR or ER and is neuter, with S added, it will change to US. Remember, there's no ending being added here, so it's actually a different contraction from amor or labor, such as tempus, temporis, meaning time, corpus, corporis, meaning body, opus, operis, meaning work, and genus, generis, meaning sort or kind. If the base ends in IT and S is added, the result will be either ES or UT, as in miles, militis, meaning soldier, or caput capitis, meaning head. If the base ends UL or OL and S is added, the result is either UL or OL in the nominative singular, such as sol, solus, meaning son, or consul, consulis, meaning consul, a high executive officer in Roman government. This should drive home the point that third declension is a catch-all category. And if all these irregularities make third declension seem overly complicated, remember that these irregularities involve only the nominative singular. If these patterns do not help you in memorizing, please feel free to ignore them. But however you decide to do it, these forms must be memorized. Learning third declension involves one more important challenge, which is the agreement between first-second declension adjectives and third declension nouns. When words come from different declensional systems, they can have the same case number and gender, but their endings may not look at all alike. In fact, they almost never do. Here's the third declension noun amor, meaning love, declined in full, minus the vocative, of course. If we were to add the first-second declension adjective verus, meaning true, creating the noun-adjective cluster true love, this is what that noun-adjective cluster would look like in Latin. Amor verus, amoris veri, amori vero, amorem verum, amore vero. In the plural, amores veri, amorum verorum, amoribus veris, amores veros, amoribus veres. Note that though the endings do not look alike, these two words do in fact agree in number, gender, and case, but their endings look different because they belong to different declensional systems. In fact, be careful. Sometimes the endings do look alike, as in the case of amorum verorum, but in fact they are not alike because the base of the noun is amor and its ending is the base of the adjective is ver and its ending is orum. Can you translate these forms? Amor verus would be true love in the nominative. Amoris veri would be of true love. Can you finish the translation of this declension? Here's a third declension feminine noun with an adjective attached to it. Civitas libera. Do these different-looking endings on the noun and adjective make sense to you? And can you translate this noun-adjective cluster? Finally, here's a third declension neuter noun with the first-second declension adjective attached to it. Tempus multum, meaning much time. Do the endings here make sense to you? And can you translate this noun-adjective cluster? For the next class meeting, you'll do a worksheet on which you'll practice declining third declension nouns and creating the proper form of a first-second declension adjective which agrees with each third declension noun in its particular case and number. Now let's turn to the vocabulary for Chapter 7. The first word is civitas civitatis, feminine, meaning state or citizenship. It's a third declension feminine noun. Note that its base is civitat, C-I-V-I-T-A-T. You get that by dropping the is from the genitive singular. Remember, that's the proper process by which to get the base of a third declension noun. Also remember that all third declension nouns whose nominative and genitive end tas tatis are abstract nouns and feminine in gender, like veritas veritatis or libertas libertatis. What would be the accusative plural of this word? That's right, civitates. The next word is homo hominis, masculine, meaning human being or man in the sense of person. Though grammatically masculine in gender, this third declension noun does not denote maleness. What's the base of this noun? That's right. Drop the is from the genitive singular and you can see that the base is homin. Our word hominid, meaning an early form of human, is derived from this base. What would be the genitive plural of this word? That's right, hominum. The next word is labor laboris, masculine, meaning work, labor, or toil. It's a third declension masculine noun. Remember that all third declension nouns whose nominative and genitive singular and or oris are masculine. This includes words like amor, amoris, love, and pudor, pudoris, shame. What would be the ablative plural of this word? That's right, laboribus. And what would be the dative singular? Good, labori. The next word is litera, literae, feminine, meaning a letter, that is a letter of the alphabet. It's a first declension feminine noun, and it's a fascinating word. In its plural form, literae literarum, this word means a letter, singular, in our sense of a letter written to someone, a written message. But you can see from the fact that literae is plural that it literally means letters of the alphabet. This plural form can also mean literature, written narrative. This sense is still seen in academia, as in colleges of arts and letters, meaning literature, or in French, belles lettres, meaning fine literature. That the same word can mean all these different things hints at an important aspect of ancient life. The sad truth is that the vast majority of people in antiquity were illiterate. As far as we can tell, with the data we have, it's impossible to do good demographics in antiquity. The illiteracy rate hovered around 90%, at best. That meant that when the majority of people saw a written document, they saw only letters. They couldn't tell what the content was. So when asked what this thing was, they said, letters. And that's how the plural of this word came to mean any type of written document. And here's another thing worth noting about this fascinating word. Notice how the classical form of litera has two T's in it. That's why our derivative letter has two T's. But we have other derivatives from this word with only one T, like literate or literature. The reason for these two different spellings is that the one T variant became popular in later antiquity, the 3rd and 4th centuries of the modern era. That one T variant was then passed on to the Romance languages, Italian and French in particular, and that one T variant leaked into English via derivatives drawn from those Romance languages. So English ended up getting this word two different ways, directly from Classical Latin with a two T spelling, and from the later Romance languages with a one T spelling. Another word that gives insight into the nature of Roman psychology is mos moris masculine, meaning habit, custom, or manner. It's a third declension masculine noun. What a mos is at heart is something that a person does regularly. In other words, a habit. To a Roman, if you added up a person's habits, you got his character. The Romans are not alone in believing this. The great philosopher Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." And we today buy into this concept when we talk about people's little ways, meaning that the small things a person does hint at larger personality traits. And that's why the plural of mos, mores morum, means character. The next word is very interesting too. I'm sorry, but this vocabulary list is just a treasure trove of historical linguistics, shedding light on ancient culture. However, if you find all this linguistics tedious, please feel free to ignore it, with my apologies. You are not required to know any of this information. But I find this sort of historical investigation of words enlightening about the past and helpful in memorizing this vocabulary. So I'm going to keep doing it. Which is why the gods have endowed your right hand with the magic of a fast-forward button. Use it wisely, my children. And now that we're done with that brief commercial message from the Center for Historical Linguistics, we return to our regularly scheduled vocabulary. Pax pacus feminine means peace. It's a third declension feminine noun. This is the word peace, as in war and peace, not peace and quiet. We've already learned that word, otium ote, neuter, second declension. The word pax appears to come from a base that means to drive a stake into the ground. A wooden stake, not a beef steak. Because stakes and rocks and other such notable features were used to establish land boundaries in antiquity. The word pax probably comes originally from judgments made between conflicting parties over who had the right to a certain strip of land. So in fact the word is not a military term originally, but a legal term. The distinction, however, is probably technical. As everyone knows, law courts are battlefields. The next word is terra, terrae, feminine, meaning land, country, ground, or earth. Be careful, this noun is first declension, not third. The next word is tempus temporis neuter, meaning time, occasion, or opportunity. It's a third declension neuter noun. What's its base? That's right, you can't look at the nominative, you have to look at the genitive, drop the is genitive singular ending, and you can see that the base is tempor, T-E-M-P-O-R. English derivatives like temporal and contemporary should help you remember this base. Another question, what's the accusative plural of this word? Remember, it's neuter. That's right, tempora. So what's the accusative singular of tempus? Trick question. It's tempus. Don't forget, neuter nominatives and accusatives are always the same. And there's another important thing to remember here. Several third declension neuter nouns, and very important ones at that, end in us in their nominative singular. Words like corpus, corporis, meaning body, or opus, operis, meaning work, or genus, generis, meaning kind or sort. Do not confuse these third declension U.S. neuter nouns with second declension U.S. masculine nouns like amicus and oculus. The genitive singular of each noun will show which declension it belongs to. The next word is virtus, virtutis, feminine, meaning manliness, courage, excellence, character, worth, or virtue. It's a third declension feminine noun. Literally, it means manliness. Vir means man, and tus means the quality of. So it may seem a bit odd to you that the word for manliness is feminine in gender. But remember, all third declension nouns which have a nominative in tus and a genitive in tutis are abstract nouns, the vast majority of which are feminine in gender. What greater proof do you need that grammatical gender and natural gender do not always coincide? The next word, post, is a preposition meaning behind or after. It takes an accusative object. So, for instance, you might say, post tempus bonum, after a good time. And if the word tempus in that phrase were underlined, and I asked you what case it is and why, you would answer, it's accusative, because it's the object of the preposition post. The next word, amor, amoris, masculine, means love. It's a third declension masculine noun. As we noted above, nouns that end or, oris in their nominative and genitive singular are almost always masculine. The next word, audeo, audere, is a verb that means dare. It's second conjugation. You should note that this verb expects a complementary infinitive, because you dare to do something. For instance, audebit laudare. He will dare to praise. His teacher, no doubt. English has a number of derivatives from this word, including audacious and audacity, but not words like auditorium or audition. Those come from a different Latin verb that means to hear. The next word is virgo, virginis, feminine, meaning maiden, girl, or virgin. It's a third declension feminine noun. Let's see how well you've been listening to this presentation. What's the base of this word? Good. V-I-R-G-I-N, which you get by dropping the I-S from the genitive singular. I can hear the snickering from here. Obviously, it's from this Latin word that we get our word virgin. In Roman society, very young people were presumed to be innocent sexually. Thus the word virgo, which meant young girl, naturally had the sense of not yet having participated in sex. End of discussion. And finally, to end this vocabulary list, let's go under. Sub. A preposition which can take an object in either the ablative or accusative case. With an ablative object, sub means in a position under, and if so, is most often used with verbs that show rest, like be, sit, stay. For example, sub caelo, meaning under the sky, the form you would use if you were standing under the open sky. If, however, sub takes an accusative object, it means to a position under, and is most often used with verbs that show motion, like go, run, flee. For example, sub terram, under the earth, showing that you're moving to a position under the earth. And after a lesson as complicated as this, burial does seem like the right note to end on. So, little corpses, does the rule that was cited at the beginning of this chapter now make sense to you? If not, please go back and review this presentation at your mortal peril. If it does make sense, sing hallelujah and proceed to the next slide. For the next class exercise, please print out a copy of the worksheet for Chapter 7. Here's a link to that worksheet. And that's it. That's the end of the presentation for Chapter 7. Denique finis discipuli.